Hello and good afternoon. I see some of you guys joining. We're going to go ahead and give everyone a couple minutes just to get settled in before we kick off. Awesome. Looks like we have everyone rolling in. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Rihanna Barsoom. I am our field marketing manager here with AVISBL. Thank you so much for joining us for day 2 of Virtual Vibe. We're gearing out towards the end of our day. We just want to say thank you for being here. Partner spotlights. For our last partner spotlight, we have Sharp NEC presenting, and we have Mark Knox joining us here. He is their vertical solutions and sales consultant. Mark, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. As Rihanna said, thank you very much. I am the vertical solution sales consultant for Sharp NEC, which basically means that I am supposed to know the best solution for every application within the verticals. Obviously, today we're focused on higher education. That is my core competency. So you guys are in luck, just to be honest with you. But as we move forward in today's presentation, I want to let you know that there will be someone manning our virtual trade show until 5 p.m. Right, so I do encourage you after the presentation and Q&A to head on over to the virtual booth and ask questions and download some of those interesting white papers as well as case studies. We are doing a raffle that we're going to be participating in directly after this presentation. And of course, if you do have questions about the material that we're about to cover, you can go ahead and put those in the chat and we will address those at the end of the session. So again, this is adapting to new needs in higher education. And hopefully the next 30 minutes is going to wake you up from that midday nap that you just got done taking, right? So let's jump right in. What does the education landscape look like? Now, the philosophy that we choose to have over at Sharp NEC is that we cannot predict the future, but we can anticipate change. And a lot of you are in that same situation. You have been faced with insurmountable tasks over the past 13 or 14 months to really deliver on the expectations of the university vision and mission statements with limited resources, uncertainties in, COVID regulations and restrictions and things like that. So yes, it is very uncertain and it's uncertainty ahead. As much as we like to get excited about things opening back up, the reality is we cannot predict the future, but we can anticipate change. Now, 8 things that will not change are what we call our 8 questions. So whenever we're talking about display technology, we like to approach that with 8 questions. So if you do have the ability, if you're taking notes, hopefully you are, to take a screenshot of this particular content on the screen now. I'm just going to go through these very quickly. These 8 questions should never change. This is how you should approach all your display needs for your particular institutions. Number one, who's going to be the primary viewer, right? So we understand that different departments have different needs. For example, the business college has different needs than the engineering school, which has different needs than the medical school, which has different needs than the law school, right? So we want to make sure that we understand who and what type of, number two, content they're planning to view. For example, if we're talking about the business school, maybe it's a finance department. They're going to be looking at a lot of, let's say, spreadsheets and numbers, things like that, formulas. We want to maybe look at a high contrast projector, maybe something with a DLP engine, right? Or maybe it's a, creative and design arts department. We want to look at something that's more color critical. So we always want to understand, regardless of this, of the circumstances that we're in now, who the primary viewer is and what that content is going to look like. What time of day is the viewing taking place? Well, this is considerable when we start talking about projections specifically, because we understand that if we're in a classroom that has east facing windows, well, up until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that sun's going to be beaming right through the window. So we want to take that into account, especially if that room has a high utilization rate. Where's the display going to be used? Now, we all understand and assume that most classrooms and instructional environments are going to have a display, but there's also those passive displays, right? There's wayfinding. There's maybe projecting on a floor for traffic flow. Maybe there's, confidence monitors for the professors. Maybe there's a donor wall, right? So we want to understand where's that display going to be used? How are facilitators and our professors planning on connecting to the display? Now, of course, we want to support as many legacy connections as we possibly can. Gone are the days when the geology professor brings in a VHS player and some old school tapes, right, to show the content there. But we also want to know, hey, is it a bring your own device scenario? Is it laptop? Is it flash drive? Is it cloud based? What exactly and how exactly are they planning to deliver the content from their technology to the broader technology, which is the university's responsibility? Why are we putting a display in that space? What's the overall goal or vision? So you heard me mention mission statement and vision. Each of you has a unique mission statement and vision for your institution, right? As does every classroom, as does every department. Okay, even if it's published or not, everybody has a mission. So that room has a mission, has a goal. What are we trying to convey to the students? What are we trying to get out of the students? What type of engagement are we trying to foster with the students? We want to make sure that our display technology fits into that overall goal or vision. Was there a display here previously, and what are the concerns? Right, the worst thing that we can do is take, for example, a 5,000 lumen projector that's been in the classroom for a number of years and replace it with another 5,000 lumen projector without understanding if there was ever complaints or limitations or service calls for that particular room. Right, we want to make sure that we're not just replacing apples with apples, and we want to make sure that we're not just doing generational upgrades, but we're really paying attention to some of the feedback that may have come from that particular space. Are there any other factors that we should consider for the room, maybe even special events? Now, I'll give you an example. I was in Toronto a number of years ago at a university that was in the downtown area, and I was doing a presentation in a 5-story building, and we were on the 3rd floor. Okay, 98-inch screen with a projector hanging from the ceiling, nothing special. I hooked my laptop up to the projector, and as I'm doing the presentation, the screen image itself is shaking, right? The entire time I'm doing it is shaking. Finally, we get to the end of the deck and I'm like, hey, what's going on, right? Is there HVAC? Is the mount loose? Do we need to get some cushions, some shock absorbers? What is happening? And one of the people that were in the room actually said, hey, there's a dance studio upstairs. Well, great. Had I known there was a dance studio upstairs, I probably wouldn't have recommended that particular piece of technology for that room, right? Because there's a projector hanging from the ceiling directly above with people jumping on it. So I wanted to be sure that I know all of the factors, and you want to be sure you know all of the factors in special circumstances, right? So those are the 8 questions. Again, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what we're going through, those things will not change. All right. So moving on here, this is the traditional workflow. This is what we've all been accustomed to. This is what we trained on. This is typically what we've come into, past 10 years. This is what we're looking at. We're looking at professor communicating a message or crafting a message via that particular professor's laptop, going over some type of network, or maybe even directly into a kiosk, right? Or a podium. Again, we've got video distribution going to projectors or large screen monitors in terms of getting that image to something that's viewable, because we can't have 300 students in an auditorium crowded around a professor's laptop, right? That doesn't work. So now we're getting it on a large screen. We're projecting on a large screen. We got the professor in the front of the room. We got students seated from front to back. And the goal of this is to deliver the message from the professor's brain to the student's brain. That's really the goal of what all of us are trying to do. We're trying to extract the knowledge from the professor and input it into the students. And the technology fosters that process, right? This is what we're faced with now. This is a hybrid learning workflow. This is kind of what we're in. So we've still got the professor, we've still got their device, we've got the network, and then all those other pieces that we're used to controlling as people in technology within the institution are eliminated. So now we're relying on whatever network is outside of the university, whatever's carrying that message outside of the university. And we're also in a situation where we have to rely on whatever technology that student has at home. and that broadband connection and so on and so forth. But we still have the same mission and vision, that is to extract the knowledge from the professor, input it into the student, and achieve a certain result, right? Now, things start to come into perspective when we start considering the four scenarios really that we're all faced with. And that's what we're going to do today very quickly is we're going to go through four scenarios. Okay, so the first scenario, I call them considerations because again, you got to consider all these things because you can't predict the future, but you can anticipate change. So consideration one is larger screens, smaller rooms, and less students. Again, larger screens, smaller rooms, less students. And I'll give you an example of what that picture looks like. But what I wanted to highlight here is a couple things. One, how big of a role resolution is now playing. So we're talking about adapting technology into the new educational environment. Resolution is something that we paid attention to in the past, but we say, hey, as long as it's viewable, maybe 1080, that's great. That's all the students need, right? We're not showing 4K movies. Well, things are a little bit different now because we've got larger screens in smaller rooms and less students. So maybe like a huddle space where we might have a half a dozen students that are looking at the same monitor. Now that resolution 1080 is not good enough anymore because if we look at our seating distance chart, we understand that now we might need 4K or hey, maybe we even need 8K in that situation because we need to look at really fine details. Whereas the student was sitting 10 to 20 feet back first row in the past, now they're right up on a monitor. So resolution is absolutely critical. Now, when we talk about resolution, especially in the projector game, there's so many different marketing terms. There's so many different things that you need to be aware of. Very quickly, there's really three different flavors, especially from Sharp NEC. There's 4K ready, 4K enhanced, and then 4K UHD. 4K UHD is what most of us have at home. That's when the content provider gives us 8.3 million pixels and our display gives us back 8.3 million pixels, pixel for pixel, no processing. Okay, that's typically what we have at home if you've got a 4K television. The next one is 4K enhanced, meaning our provider is going to give us 8.3 million pixels. We're going to give our viewer 8.3 million pixels, but in order to get to 8.3 million, we've got to do a little processing. That's enhancement, right? The last one is 4K ready. Being 4K ready from Sharp NEC perspective basically means that our content provider, again, is going to give us 8.3 million pixels, and I'm going to give you, the viewer, whatever the native resolution of the display is. In contrast to other manufacturers who are not going to give you an image at all, they're going to give you a blue screen or a screen that says, input signal not found, so on and so forth. Be aware of some of the marketing terminology because the worst thing you can do is have an entire 4K workflow. And we just talked about how important 4K is becoming. Got an entire 4K workflow. You got 4K capture devices, you got 4K video cards, you got 4K PC, you got 4K everything. And then when you get to your device, you accidentally bought a 4K ready projector or you bought a 4K enhanced projector. So I'm giving you 8.3 millions, but you're only giving me back 4 million or 2.15 million, right? So make sure that we're paying attention to those different scenarios when it comes to 4K. Very, very important topic. This is an example of that larger screen, smaller rooms, less students. Most of us will call this a huddle space, right? What's big right now is the whole collaboration deal. So if you look at something like this, which is a huddle space, okay, you see again 7 students in a space because we're trying to not have large groups of people, obviously because of restrictions that are still in place and just being socially responsible. Now we're doing collaboration. So we may have, and we call these pods, we may have 3 or 4 of these pods, and they're all collaborating with a professor that's maybe in an office, still on campus, or a remote location. Okay. So we want to make sure that, again, we have the right resolution and then we've got the right products. So CB series would take care of something like that. And that's where we're talking about collaboration. Collaboration and collaboration boards are a huge asset to any instructional environment because now we can actually get real-time feedback on student engagement because the professor's doing something, the student is responding. The professor's doing something else, the student is responding. Whereas before we just had to rely on, I hope they're getting this message, right? So moving forward to consideration number 2, personal space, personal screen, remote student. This is at home. That's basically what this is. This is professor sitting behind a screen and a camera, just like I am. And this is student sitting behind a screen and hopefully a camera. Okay. Now, the reality of this is where we have the least amount of control when it comes to engagement, collaboration, and overall IT infrastructure. We have the least amount of control. One thing that we can control with specific display technology, though, is what the student is seeing and the consistency of what the student is seeing. Unfortunately, we got students that are trying to do distance learning on their smartphone. Now, that's probably not a good idea, right? Because the screen is so small, you're going to get eye fatigue. You're not going to be able to see the fine details, so on and so forth. Imagine if we, as technology providers, had the ability to send home a desktop display for every single student that was going to be participating in remote learning. In doing that, sending home a desktop display, we would be able to ensure that all content is created equal and that every student can see exactly what the professor intends for them to see on the size monitor that will be most effective for the communication of the content. Okay, so again, we have to start thinking outside of the box a little bit because we can't control certain factors, right? And the display that our students are using is a huge factor because that is the window into the subject that they're trying to retain. So again, consider that in some of your remote scenarios. Consider maybe, hey, sending home a 27-inch 4K monitor or something like that, right? Just something so that you can guarantee that the student is seeing what the professor intends to teach. The next consideration, mid-sized rooms, multiple screens, present and remote students. So this is the true hybrid model, right? Because we've got students in the room and we've got students that are remote. Okay. Now, when we think about this setup, what we want to do here, we want to make sure that the professor's teaching style is as unchanged as possible. There's something called thought load, right? Not only do we rely on our professors to be experts in their particular field and be able to communicate that message to the students, but we also expect them to be IT professionals. We also expect them to know how to work all of these gadgets and gadgets that most of us have no problem understanding, right? When you place a professor in a scenario where they have students that are in the room and they have students that are on monitors behind the last row of the students that are also in the room, what you've effectively done is you've gave that professor a license to maintain their current teaching style, their in-person teaching style, which is going to make sure that the integrity of the lesson, the integrity of content is on point to what they were doing pre-pandemic, right? So the students in the room are going to get the benefit of actually being physically present. The professor does not have to increase their thought load or even change the way that they teach. And then the students that are on the screens behind the last row of students that are present are going to get the benefit of a professor that's in their element, that's flowing, that's locked in, that is delivering their message in the most comfortable way that they've trained to do, right? So again, this is that hybrid model. This is the model where you've got students in the room, socially distanced, of course, and you've got monitors behind the last row of students that are in the room. Now, why do we put the monitors behind the students and not in front of the students? Because we're trying to eliminate distractions, right? So if we've got monitors in front of the students, then or behind the professor, which is probably the worst thing you can do, then you've got the professor trying to communicate with students virtually behind them and physically in front of them, and then they all get out of sort. But this way, we're creating that level, and we're taking away that barrier of being virtual and not being physically in the room. So products for that, video wall bundles, we make them easy. They come in kits, 2x2, 3x3, so on and so forth. Of course, when we're talking about product, we're talking about specific things. I want you to definitely reach out to your AVI SPO representative to make sure that they're locked in on that particular solution. Consideration number 4, larger rooms, larger screens, distance students. Now, this is basically what we all dealt with pre-pandemic. The only difference now is that when a room was, utilized, um, let's say it was a 60-seat room. Well, some of the classes may only have 20 students in them, right? Maybe it was just a matter of space on how they assigned. At this point in the game, though, we're going to have to use every single seat in every single space. So if you look at the tables here that are on the right-hand side of this particular image, where we may have, 4 or 5 students at one desk, now we're only going to have 2, and we're going to have every single desk filled from front to back. So again, this is where resolution comes in, because the people that are sitting closest to the screen need to be able to see exactly what the people that are sitting further away from the screen can see. So yes, we're looking at direct view LED now, because again, we need to get a vibrant image, a large image at a high resolution on the screen. We may even need to get some large format displays, some 65, 75-inch monitors, and put those as auxiliaries for the people that are in the back. We can't assume that the students in the back can see exactly what the students in the front can. I mean, in theory, we've always assumed that. We assume if we put a 200-inch display at the front of the room, everybody can see it. The reality of that, that's not necessarily true. So again, we've got kitted solutions for direct view LED. What is a kit? A kit is out of the box, ready to go, plug and play. Comes with everything you need. All the pricing is included, installs included as well. So again, reach out to AVISPL representative for more information on those kitted displays. Kind of takes the engineering and some of the weird nuances. It eliminates all of those things. Another way to deliver a large image to a large group of people, of course, is projection. So if you are not on the laser projection bandwagon, if you are still buying, we'll go back one. If you're still buying lamp-based projectors, that's fine. I'm here to tell you though, we have rounded third and headed for home. Laser projection is here to stay. Our particular portfolio of products has 2-to-1 on laser to lamp models, right? So we've got quite a few more laser models than we have lamp models. In the past, we used to have either or. Now we've got mostly laser. And why? 20,000 hours continuous, no maintenance on most of our models, meaning no filters, no bulbs, right? Light source intensity adjustments, color critical applications, time saving, and of course, 5-year warranty. So you want to be sure that you're not just looking at dollars today when looking at projection opportunities, but you're looking into the future and you're looking at that total cost of ownership. Again, we can't predict the future, but we can anticipate change. Laser projection will help us save money in the long run because it takes funds from our capital budget, right, to actually purchase the equipment, and it helps us save on our operating budget because now we don't need to change bulbs, filters, or send people up ladders. Okay, we can buy more HDMI transmitters or whatever we buy with our operational stuff. So projector line for higher education, case in point, we've got everything. Let's just say that we've got everything. I would be remiss if I did not mention the educational programs and promotions. So first and foremost, we've got our award-winning program called Star Student. What you need to know about this is you're going to get, of course, a 5-year warranty. You're going to get a free additional 2 years. You're going to get, I'm sorry, that's 5-year as total, not 7. So 5 years. You're going to be in the trade-up program. You're going to get special pricing, so on and so forth, right? So Star Student is the award-winning program from Sharp NEC. The next promotion I'm always excited to talk about is buy 10, get 1 free, but not just of a single model, right? So let's assume you buy 5 of these and you buy another 5 of those, 2 different models. Whatever model is the least expensive, you're going to get another one of those free. So it's a mix and match program. Okay, so buy 10, get 1 free. That's going to be running until the foreseeable future. And then, of course, we talked about the warranty as well. So 3 years on lamp-based models, 5 years on laser-based models. But I say all that to say, the last slide that I have, the big question, right? The thing that all of us should be waking up every single morning when we go to the office, asking ourselves is, how will the technology I help deploy enhance the learning experience? Now, whether you like it or not, everybody that's under the sound of my voice is an educator. You may not be directly speaking to students. You may not be crafting curriculum or anything like that, but you do have a huge hand to play in the educational process. Your job is to use technology to enhance the learning experience. Okay, so when you get to a point where you're just spending money to spend money, or you're just buying things because that's what you think you're supposed to be doing, that's a dangerous slope to start to go down, right? Because again, we need to be able to justify every single purchase that we make, which is why we want to ask ourselves those 8 questions. We want to keep the vision and the mission of the university at the forefront. We want to make sure that we're anticipating change because, hey, some of you guys on the call were ready. You flipped the switch and it was business as usual. Others, not so much, right? So again, we need to get in front of potential things that may happen. who would have thought, right? But reality of the situation is ask yourself the question, how will the technology I help to deploy enhance the learning experience? That's what all of this is about. It's not a free for all for display technology, but it really is trying to trying to improve student outcomes. Okay. So listen, that's all I have for you in terms of a formal presentation. I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat here and let's see. What would be your best recommendation for the shaking projector problem? Would you consider a shock absorbing projector mount, monitor instead of a projector? Great question. Given that it was only a 98-inch screen, I would have recommended a monitor. For me, I don't start talking projection until I'm at least 98 inches or above. Why 98? Because that's the largest monitor we sell, right? So when I start to think about display technology, large venue for me is anything above 98 inches. A monitor on the wall surely would have solved that problem. And it would have been, quite frankly, a lot better image as well, right? So let's see if we got anything else. If there's any other questions. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Lorand, Bruce, thank you very much. Listen, guys, again, it's my responsibility at Sharp NEC to make sure that I have the answers to your questions for your specific vertical. I do a lot of talking to people like you guys. I do a lot of question and answer. I do a lot of these presentations on a one-to-one, and I'm always the guy asking those questions, right? Because I'm trying to retain the knowledge. I'm trying to get as many examples as possible so that when I get to a platform like this, I can share with you and really tell you kind of what's going on, right? So again, if you've ever got any questions, whether it's tech, whether it's strategy, whether it's the challenges you're facing, definitely reach out to me directly. Let's see. Bruce asked, do you anticipate the price of DirectView LED coming down? Absolutely, Bruce. I mean, maybe not for the foreseeable future because of obviously what we're going through with chip shortages from everything, right? But the reality is, as DirectView LED becomes more mainstream, we get to economies of scale. We produce more. We're able to produce it at a cheaper price, or let's say a less expensive price, right? And that's translated to you guys. Now, again, I can't say that that's going to happen anytime soon, but just like all other technology, especially display technology, the price will definitely come down. But I want to warn you too, Bruce, there's going to be options out there that are cheaper than what you're going to see from your top manufacturers, such as us. There's reasons why, right? When the top manufacturers reach economies of scale and are able to lower the price, that's when you know that the advancements in the technology are real. When you're looking at alternatives that are a cheaper price, that's when you know somebody's cutting corners. Right? So definitely be aware of that. Okay. That's right, Bruce. Let's make sure we've got everyone covered here. Rihanna, do you see any more questions that I might be?
Hey,
Okay,
Mark, looks
actually,
like another one just came in through the chat.
can you comment on what the tipping points are to go from projector or single display to LCD, LED video wall? Yep. And then yep. You're right. Okay, so John, in a nutshell, couple rules of thumb, right? So one of those questions that I asked was the time of day. Now, you can take a 10,000 lumen projector, put it on a 150 inch screen with lighting control and shade control on the windows, and that image will be worth every single dollar. As soon as you shine the sun through that window, disappointment is going to set in, right? So ambient light is a huge factor, a huge factor. Also, flexibility of a room. So when I'm talking about DirectView LED, although the image is very bright, very vibrant, regardless of the cost, it's not very flexible, right? If I'm going for some type of room aesthetics where I want to maybe be able to raise the screen or pop the projector back into a ceiling panel, right? Because the room aesthetics, maybe it's a boardroom, conference room, right? DirectView LED is always going to be black squares on the wall, on or off, okay? Now, again, if you're in a high ambient light situation, DirectView LED is definitely going to be the way to go. So for me, it's everything below 98 inches. Everything below 98 inches is going to be a large format display, LCD panel. Okay. When we start talking about anything from 98 to 200, it's a toss up between direct view LED and large venue projection. Everything above 200, though, the scales start to tip in favor of large venue projection massively because of the cost. Okay. So obviously, it's a balance between cost, ambient light, and flexibility. That's why it's all application based. You may have two exact rooms, you may think they're the same, but one has east facing windows, the other one has west facing windows. Well, if my utilization of that room is 97% before noon, ambient light is going to be a huge factor for the east side, and then vice versa for the west. A lot of different things to think about, right? Things that we may not have thought about in the past. But again, the goal is to make sure that every piece of technology that we're deploying is enhancing the learning experience, not taking away from it. And if I've got a 150-inch screen on a wall that's got the light shining through, I'm not enhancing the learning experience. I'm actually taking away from it because the students can't see it. It's washed out, right? So you got to be honest. You got to be honest. All righty, let's see here. What else we got?
Looks like we are at bottom of the half hour there, Mark, and I just want to say thank you.
Thanks, Leo.
Thanks for joining us in such an informative presentation. And if anyone has any other questions for Mark or for Sharp NEC, they will be in the booth today till about 5 p.m. or so. And then we will have our raffle kicking off right at 5. Definitely use the last hour and a half of our event. Check out the rest of the other trade show floors. And if you missed any of our presentations from yesterday, they are available in the auditorium, and our partner spotlights will be live in there starting tomorrow morning. Thank you again, Mark, for joining us. And thank you everyone for being here with us today. We look forward to it and hopefully talking to you soon.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.